Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here with this band-endorsed but fan-based podcast. Really excited to be going through this new album, Chaos and Color. Just a few songs in already, and so far every one of them, for me at least, has just been absolutely fantastic. Haven't really looked at a whole lot of feedback because I really don't want to be influenced by anything. Some people have left comments on some of the various socials that I'm on. So far, it's been very, very positive. It's always funny. There's like some backhanded compliments like, wow, this album is really good for a bunch of old guys. Or, it's amazing they can still write. I would think that their writing would be better than ever now. I mean, of course, it's all subjective, right? But you have to figure that this is 50 plus years of a band being together, plus all the individual experiences of the band members, all the different tours they've been on, different projects they've worked on. This lineup has done a few albums together now, so they're super comfortable working with each other. They've been on tours. Even though this album was written mostly before they started playing out again after COVID, they were writing it remote. There's a comfortability of we've been working together for a long time. There's also fresh influences because you have some outside assists, which is nice too. So, I look at some of the bands that have been around for a long time, and we tend to think about the classic things that they've done in the past, and those are the best things we're ever going to do, or they're never going to have another hit like this or that. But you know what? To me, some of these bands are writing the absolute best stuff they've ever done. The problem, I think, is that we tend to want to make them top something that they did a long time ago because that took off in the public eye. It's a lot harder nowadays for things to take off in the public eye than it was in 1970 or 71 because there is so much out there to cut through now. And I don't know how many bands that we know of from that era would be able to cut through the noise if they were a new band today. And unfortunately, it has nothing to do with the quality of the writing, the quality of the production, or the quality of the performance. It's just so much muck to swim through to get to the top and go, hey, I just want to let you know I'm here. And so I would really find that fascinating. And I've talked to some artists too, on my other podcast and people that I know. And how would you do it if you had to do it today? If you were a brand new band starting today and you didn't have your fame from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s that kind of put people on notice. When you post something, you already have a huge fan base because of the work that you've done in the past. If you were just starting out today with the material that you have, how would you cut through the noise? Almost every single one of them looks at me and says, I have no idea. And it's very true. It's absolutely very true. So I always find it funny when people expect that bands are going to decline in writing or in abilities. I mean, Uriah Heep is clearly on fire at this point. Clearly on fire, playing at the top of their game. Their writing is fantastic. The performances are fantastic. While I have my issues with Brick Wall Limiting, I think the album sounds damn good. So I don't know. It's always a weird thing and almost like a backhanded compliment to go, wow, this is really good for a bunch of old guys or something like that. I always find that interesting. And I've seen a lot of comments like that. I'm not picking on any one person because I've seen quite a few. And, Alice Cooper, his album, a chart-topping album. And, he's been doing this for a very long time as the character of Alice Cooper. And Deep Purple, again, last couple albums. I don't know about the cover album, Turning to Crime, but like Infinite, I know, and the one after that, they, chart-topping albums all over the world. The Graham Bonnet Band was doing some great numbers across the world on the charts too with their new album. And they're a younger band, but I mean, Graham's been doing music for a long time. So, it's nice to see these people that have the long-term experience and can write from such a different perspective than so many of these young bands, even people like myself, who's only been doing this for about 30 some years. that's 2 more decades. Plus they tour, they have experiences, they're working with other people. So in that regard, they bring a lot of different stuff to the table than I can as a writer, because I don't go on the road. I don't do concerts. With my music, it would be almost impossible with any degree of quality other than exactly what it sounds like on the album. I don't work with a lot of other musicians, so I don't have those perspectives that they bring. So they're bringing like 50 plus years of their own wisdom, plus the collective of everybody that's touched the band in one way or another. So why wouldn't their writing be some of the best that's out there? I mean, of course it is. They know rock and roll better than the rest of us do because they've been doing it for longer. So always very interesting stuff. But anyway, we do have a bit of a long song to get into. This one's around 7.5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And before we get into that, let's talk about the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Because this podcast, I should say, my other podcast doesn't, because it's not a deep dive podcast, but there is a whole collection of amazing podcasts out there that when you guys are done listening to this episode or this season, or if you've listened to all the shows and you don't want to go back and listen to them again yet, I say yet because you might, there are a ton of other shows in a similar vein. They're all done differently. They all have their own style, their own flair, and they're all about different bands. So we have, of course, Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the other side, where he interviews different people in the music industry. We have the Deep Purple podcast, all things Deep Purple, and digging deep into the whole family of related Deep Purple members and the things that they've done. They've got years of material ahead of them. I've been a guest on that show a few times. Skynyrd Reconsidered, all about the early years of Lynyrd Skynyrd. We're still waiting for that new season to come out. We have Sabbath Bloody Podcast, which covered all of Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. We have In the Lap of the Pods, which is a podcast all about Queen. We have Hawk Binge, which is all about the band Hawkwind. One experienced listener and one first-time listener giving their perspectives on all of Hawkwind's music, which is really interesting. We have Maiden A to Z Pod, which is all about Iron Maiden. We have the Diary of the Madman, the ultimate Ozzy podcast. No need to go into detail there. Same with Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast. Obviously a show about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We have Judas Priest Cast. We have And the Podcast Will Rock, which is all about Van Halen. My co-host Corey Morissette from Backtracks Aerosmith Revisited, which is another show that I'm on along with John Mariano. But Corey does And the Podcast Will Rock with Mark Kameyer. And then Corey and John have another show called Backtracks Theme Music, where they go into music from television shows, films, that sort of thing. I've been a guest on that one a couple times, as well as And the Podcast Will Rock. We have a North by South, which is a comparison of songs from North America, one from Canada and one from the United States. Very interesting comparison there. We have So Far, So Pod, So What, which is a Megadeth podcast. We have the Tom Petty Project. We have Seaside Pod Review, which is all things Queen. We have And Volume for All and the Rock Roulette podcast. And of course, some additional friends to the show. We have Metallicast, my buddy Brandon over there, who's been a guest on this show, serving up all things Metallica. We have GottaHearEmAll.com for well-researched information on Deep Purple, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, their whole touring history. We have Louder with Ace, the manager of Uriah Heep, Thin Lizzy, Grand Bonnet Band, and other bands. Really a good show that he's got. A couple of recent episodes have come to light. So go and enjoy those. Links for all this stuff, guys, are in the show notes. Also, go check out the cameos for some members of Uriah Heep, and they're all on Twitter, or some of them are on Twitter, and all that good stuff. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Cakewalk by BandLab. They're so cool to work with. They provide the digital audio station that I do the show on. We have Podbean, which is the current distribution pod host for the show. My graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, that did such an amazing job on the logo for the show, as well as my Universal Court series of books and my third What Happened in Vegas book. He did the covers of those. Beautiful work. Audionamics, I will not do a podcast without Instant Dialogue Cleaner. I shouldn't say that because just before I upgraded to Windows 10, I was not able to get it to work anymore with Windows 8.1. A lot of things were changing, and that's what kind of forced me to upgrade. So I had to find an alternate solution, which I think worked decently well, but Instant Dialogue Cleaner is always my go-to for cleaning dialogue. Isotope, I use RX for their declick. And then Waves, I use Vocal Rider, Sibilance, and Deep Breath for the podcast. And then the Cakewalk exclusive Sonatus compressor. So those are all the cool little tools I use to make the show sound as it sounds, other than my voice, which I can't really give a credit to because it's not that great all the time. Dave White, the director of social media for Uriah Heep, does the website, uriah-heep.com, as well as mick-box.net. And I want to thank everyone who has shared this show, let others know about it in one form or another, left feedback, all that good stuff. Everything, like I said, everything is oversaturated with people doing things. So it's very easy to, get lost in the muck. And so for all of you guys that are sharing it, telling people about it, posting reviews, all that helps the show get seen. And to hopefully other Uriah Heep fans that may not be aware of it, or people that are curious about Uriah Heep and want to find out what their music is all about. I've had so many people to this day that are like, oh, yeah, Uriah Heep. I didn't really get into their stuff, but thanks for doing the show because I started listening and I'm really enjoying their catalog, and they'll say, I went and bought Look at Yourself, or I went and bought Demons and Wizards or whatever, Very cool to see the impact that this show has made, found the band some new fans, and I don't think anything would excite me more than that. So that's it on the notes. Let's get into the song. This is One Nation, One Sun. That's S-U-N, not like what up, son? S-O-N. S-U-N, like the giant ball of gas that floats around in the universe shooting rays of energy at us.
High on a mountain, I look below as all the world is sleeping. And as I wonder what lies behind the spirit of redemption.
I always enjoy these nice, treasured moments where we get just Phil and Bernie for a minute. The combination of the two of them is every time it's just a beautiful thing, and we don't get it that often. So it's a real treat. I love the depth that Bernie is singing with, and the piano progression is really great here. This is a thing that you write a piece of music and you sing over it. You could strategize all kinds of ways to match melodies and things, but this is really just feels like both players playing from the heart in a key together. I don't know how else to explain the writing side of it better than that. At least that's how it would work for me. But this combination of these two is always great.
I thought of this, how we came so far and the words so softly spoken, how the storm would rage but the dream remained unbroken. Every heart would rise at the thought of our new freedom, all in harmony.
So if I'm not mistaken, what we're hearing is a combination of backing vocals as well as a synth pad. I'm hearing a little bit of a vibrato in there, but not on the whole thing. So it leads me to believe it's a blend of both. I don't know. I could be wrong. That's just what I'm hearing. But it made me realize, too, how much Uriah Heep's music has changed over the years. I mean, if you go back to the early albums, even albums in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, there was quite a difference in the style of the band in regards to backing vocals. It was one of the things that they were known for. And thinking back to even songs on Living the Dream, I'm not recalling off the top of my head the kind of backing vocals that we used to get, where they were really focused. I mean, there were a lot of sections that were driven by backing vocals or enhanced by backing vocals, very specifically written for that. And it seems like now what we hear are more things like this, where they're just blended in as opposed to being featured the way they were. I mean, think about, like Look at Yourself, for example, very heavy backup vocals that even were the vocals for an entire section of the song. And it's interesting to see how much that one piece that they were known for. I mean, they were known for other things, but that was a big component of their music, like Three Dog Night. I mean, they were all about the harmonies in that. But Three Dog Night was basically singers and a backing band. So Uriah Heep is musicians, they're the full package. But it's just interesting now that I'm thinking about it in terms of how much the band has changed in their writing and recording over the years that we haven't had that in a while. But I like what they're doing now. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. It's just more of an observation of how much they've changed over the years. And like this kind of stuff is a really nice addition because instead of it just being like a synth, it's got that human factor to it. There's a little vibrato as they trail off, which gives that human side that you really can't replicate in a synthesizer very well unless it's exactly the same every time. If the patch is programmed to do that, then it's going to be exactly the same and it's not going to have that human quality. And it's just nice to have their voices, especially while they're not playing on the song, kind of feels like a little bit of unity, like the whole band's still with you, supporting you.
We had what we wanted, and though we fell from love and war beneath the sun, the scars heal so quickly, they lead us on to find the right connection. I thought of this, how we came so far on the words so softly spoken, how the storm would rage but the dream remained unbroken. Every heart would rise at the thought of our new freedom, all in harmony. All in harmony.
Another thing I really love about this is, for one, we're getting to see how skilled Phil is as a piano player. It's not something we really get to see a whole lot of, or at least for this duration and solo, without the whole band there. We've got Dave who's joined in on bass, and I love those just smooth runs along the fretboard, not intruding at all. In fact, it was a couple seconds before I realized he was at it because it just blended in so nicely. And I just really smooth and lovely, not a harsh bass, no distortion on it, just really nice blend of sound. But, much like what we're getting from Phil on piano, we're getting from Bernie on vocals. And to hear him a little more isolated for this long of a patch, I mean, we're already almost 2.5 minutes into the song, and we haven't had a lot of instrumentation added, and we've had some backing vocals added to enhance, but not really drown Bernie out or take away from him. And you really get to see not as much as you would in an isolated track, which almost would be out of context and you might not understand why he's emphasizing certain things and where he's being more gentle on others. But without all that music to take part of our mind off of what he's doing, we're really getting a glimpse into just what a talented singer he is. His understanding of the words and how to portray the story to make it meaningful instead of just being words written on a page. He is such a skilled vocalist. Aside from just how great his voice is, he really knows how to tell a story.
All in harmony, watching the world so peaceful and still belonging.
And now we get Mick joining in, who has been waiting so patiently off to the side for his part to come on, and getting some really nice guitar tones. Again, adding to the song, but not distracting from the vocal, just like the way that Dave came in, but a little more noticeable because the guitar is a little brighter, but adding to it. And we're getting the slightest hint of a drum in there. It's just almost like a little puff of a pulse. It's not like the attack of a bass drum or anything like that. Just a little puff, almost as if Russell's got his foot all the way down on the pedal. He's lifting it up just enough to make a sound that's barely audible, and very consistent too. I don't know if that's how he's doing it, if this is maybe done by hand or what, I don't know. But it's very, very subtle and gentle. That was a nice build up to, the full band playing with drums and all. I really like that transition. It was very nice. I'm glad they didn't do like this, like a long build up to that. They just had each instrument was introduced subtly, and then all of a sudden, boom, now the song's going to kick into another gear. But listen to that rhythm section, what Russell and Dave are laying down on drums and bass. This is really cool. I love Dave's playing already on this song. Now it's interesting because we've got these thick layered vocals, but they're almost behind the music all of a sudden. And that's weird because they've been so heavily featured, and now that the band's there, now they're blended in more than being out front where vocals would normally be. So that's interesting. I did look out of curiosity. I don't normally get into this too much, but it looks like this was written, of course, just according to the CD credits. This is Mick and Phil that wrote this song. So the reason I don't do that is because, as I've said on the show before and other podcasts, it almost doesn't matter who writes the original thing. That's just the idea. It's brought to the band, and the band typically goes, okay, well, this is good. How about I play my part this way? Or what if I add this in? Or it becomes everybody's combined input to make the final song what it is. So I don't know exactly how Uriah Heep works or how most bands work, but, typically they're going to come in and go, here's the idea we had for the bass, or here's kind of the basic bass line. And then the bass player is going to take that and kind of make it their own, just as you would the drummer. Like, here's the beat. Okay, well, what if I did an extra hit on the hi-hat? Or what if I open the hi-hat a little bit more than what we're talking about here? I think that would make the song feel this way or enhance it that way. So everybody kind of puts their personal stamp on a song. So regardless of who came up with the initial idea or the bulk of the song, it really is the collective of the whole band. The difference would be just in the basic structure writing. So like you've got... Davey's writing with somebody outside the band. Russell's writing with somebody outside the band. Mick and Phil are working together. So you're going to get a little bit different styles. But as we heard on the first episode, the demo version was vastly different than what Uriah Heep came up with as the collective final. So that just goes to show the personal stamp and modifications that it takes for the band to make the song their own. So while it's credited to Mick and Phil, certainly everybody has put their stamp on it. I love that passage. What Mick's playing there is really standing in for the emotion that we're not getting from the vocals in this section, because it's not, there's no vocals. But it continues that feeling, whereas Bernie's singing and making us feel a certain way. Now Mick's taking over and carrying the torch for this, few bars. I really like it. I know people will debate these kind of sections, whether they're solo sections or not. I really don't care what you label it. It's just nice to hear. It's something really enjoyable. It's something to carry that emotion, and it's done so gently. It doesn't have to have a lot of notes. Sometimes it just needs to feel a certain way, and Mick really brought it there. without having to do anything, massive or technical to get us there. It just kind of carried the torch very beautifully. Okay, my intuition tells me that we're about to hit a solo section. So before we do, I really like this passage. I think this song has had such a great build to it. Really feeling so much passion coming from Bernie on this. I like that the music is really just filling in spaces and carrying him along. I mean, this is such a beautiful song, so well performed. I really love Dave's playing on this one. I think so far, I would have to say this is the most interesting bass performance. This is kind of bringing back what I think people think of when they think of Uriah Heep, with the bass playing really standing out in the mix, because this is up front more in the mix than it has been in any song up to this point for the full song so far. Don't know if that'll change, obviously, because I've never heard it before. But the bass has been a little more buried in the mix in some of the other songs. There's been points where I've heard it come forward, but it hasn't been as primary of an instrument as we're used to. So I think this is getting back more to that sound, just with a modern, cleaner version of the song, the overall sound than we would be thinking of from back in like days of Gary Thane or that. But yeah, this is really nice, really nice. So we've still got almost 2.5 minutes of the song left. So let's see where it goes next. If I'm right, this should be a solo section. Okay, so it wasn't a solo section, but this is super cool. I really like that the song has taken another step forward. Love the layers of vocals here. The bass playing is killer right here. I'm loving this groove. The only thing I don't like is I think the cymbals, like the ride and the crashes, are just a little bit too loud. That China cut through really nice, but the rest of it I think is just a little bit too loud for my personal taste. Again, the way I'm hearing it in these particular headphones. But yeah, other than that, like I love the feel of this part. I love the groove of it. Okay, they were kind of hard to hear, but I'm pretty sure I heard some guitar effects that started in my right ear and went across to my left. They were really buried in the background, but I'm pretty sure that's what I just heard. Maybe you guys did too. Okay, so the guitar effects are back again, very buried in the background. Started in my right ear, went back to my left again. Did I say that right last time? I think I did, right to left. But I'm also hearing a little bit of background fill in from the keyboard as well, I think. Again, very much in the background. Now we're hearing some strings come in, which is nice. I really love the feel and the build of the song. Very unexpected, very different, but super cool. It's hard to believe that we're like 6 minutes and 47 seconds in, and there hasn't really been an actual solo. That's pretty rare for a song this long for a rock band, but they've certainly, it's been a very interesting song to listen to. It doesn't really lack for not having any kind of flashy solo or anything like that in it. Yeah, I mean, the closest that we got would be that one section where Mick filled in for Bernie. But apart from that, yeah, a really different kind of arrangement, but it's definitely working. I like that they went with the long fade instead of, like a quick fade. I think an epic song like this really deserves a slow, long fade. We're starting to hear a little bit of soloing from Phil there in the background on the Hammond, but it's nice to have a big epic song like this. Shouldn't have an abrupt end. It shouldn't have a quick fade. It should really trail off this way and make you want to follow it. Like, I really want to know what else they played because this has all been so cool. I would love to hear the uncut version of this without the fade. Just let me hear what they did until the end because it just has such an amazing feel to the song. Definitely one of my favorites on this album, if not one of my favorites of this band. I think this is top-notch writing. This is experience. This is exactly what I was talking about at the top of the episode. And it's interesting that I picked this episode to talk about that because this song exemplifies that very thing. It's patient. It knows when to change. It knows not to overindulge and take anybody out of the moment of the song. It knows how to draw you in with the emotion, whether it be the vocals or the guitars. It's filling in all the gaps in sound without feeling too, oversounded. There's not oversound. That's not even a word. Not too full. They're not trying to do so many things and fill up every little sonic dot possible in our ears. It's very well mixed, very well blended. I just find it interesting that those effects and those little bursts from the keyboard are so far in the background. They're still audible. You feel them more than you hear them, though. But I don't feel like the song is lacking for not having a guitar solo or a keyboard solo up to the little point that we're hearing Phil at the end. I think it's just very, very well done. It carries on beautifully. It doesn't at all feel like a 7.5-minute song. Not by any stretch of the imagination. It went by so fast. But absolutely amazing, fantastic tune. I'm sure you guys are digging it. I can't imagine that you're not. This is a band that could write a song like this and carry it for 7.5 minutes and not make it repetitive or boring or anything. I mean, this song it's everything. It checks every box. Great job, guys. Absolutely great job. And it makes me just really excited to do the next episode and see what the next song is all about. But congratulations. Great playing from Davey on bass. There's some really cool bass runs and grooves on here. This song has great motion. It has just some great tones and textures and again, a incredible vocal performance from Bernie. And I have to say he's pretty much this incredible on every song. It's just that on this particular song, we get to hear it more because there's less happening around him. So he stands out a little more, just in way of that. But it's a very emotional song. There's a lot of, you just feel that coming off of him as you're listening to him sing throughout the whole song, whether there's blended vocals or not. But yeah, this is a fantastic song. This is 52 years in the making. Great work, guys. Absolutely great work. That being said, we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!